finished with the book just before supper break. So we'll just leave we'll still run the book around like we've been doing, and then we'll just sit it on the table next to where Brian hangs out. And somebody wants to change their mind or add a little something, then we'll go through the book after the presentation each night. Thank you. Gotta love that accent. Okay, so all right. As we mentioned before, we've got Alan Smith has come to visit us from South Australia. He's got a presentation, like an aviary tour, as it were, in pictures, and he'll take us through those photos and tell us all about how he does it and where he does it and how life is for him. So, did you want him to stand on that side, Sam? On this side? Okay. All right. So, without any further ado, I'll introduce you to Alan Smith. Step on up, please, Alan. There's your little pointer thing and all that sort of carry on. Like, yep. I don't know. I hope it's on. Well, let's have a look. Yes, it's in the on position. Good. All right. There you are. There's the microphone. Go for it.
Right. Yeah, so you're going to go for a bit of a lap through. You want me closer so you can see me, don't you? A little more? Well, that'll be fine. Yeah, so I'm basically going to just do a run through of my setup there, my management, how I manage my aviaries, because people say, how do you do all that and run a farm as well? And then at the end, there's what I did with my last build, just a few little tips and bits and pieces. So hang on. I didn't think so. Right. So just before we start, you all need to read, or I'll read it for you. How much information are you going to retain from a presentation? So I found this. It's from 2015, but it's just interesting. So immediately after I finish, you're going to remember about 50% of what I give you. Tomorrow, that's halved. You're going to remember about 25%. And next week, about 10%. So just be careful of the bits you do remember and which bits you don't. So here we go. You're going to go for a lap around my place. That's the big aviary you'll see at the end. So where am I? Obviously, this is South Australia. I'm actually way down here. Obviously, that's Adelaide up there. My closest South Australian bird sale, here at Murray Bridge, 3-hour drive. My actual closest sales are just here in Western Victoria, about 2.5 hours. Cannot, oh Jesus, wrong buttons here. I can't freight in. They won't freight into Mount Gambier anymore, so it's Adelaide or Melbourne, so give that away as a bad job. So we're down the limestone coast down there, which is good in one sense. I don't get pestered by a lot of people, but then when you want to deal with people, it also gets difficult. That's part of where we live, out behind, just behind the house. There's a 200-acre wetland, permanent water in some places. We're heavy soil with big red gums country. So that's just looking back out to the paddock. Whoa, bang, wrong one again. That one up there. So this is typical of our red gum country. These ugly looking red gums that are hundreds of years old, no good timber in them. That was all milled for the railways and back in the 1900s. And then you see this tree back in here. That's one that was ring bark in the 30s. That was when they sort of started clearing the country to a better degree. This tree is dying. That got hit by lightning. Takes about 12 months to kill a tree. But the main reason why our country was cleared, as heavily as it is, was if there was 2 sticks left together, there was rabbits. Rabbits is what caused the clearing of the country in a big way. And that was until myxomatosis in about the 50s came through and sawed them out. So you've pulled up at our place. and the bus pulled up at the gate there. So that's just a row of parrot aviaries, which probably don't interest you a whole lot, but I'm going to give you a little bit of rundown. There's 20 aviaries there. The old standard walk through, I got them from a neighbour, carted them up there. Aviaries. You'll notice there's a bit of red staining here from the water. That's actually iron bacteria that you get in bore water. If the boring contractor's got the bacteria on their gear, it gets transported around. So we've actually copped that. It's terrible. It blocks misters. It blocks stuff. You've got to treat your water all the time. It's not actually rust, and it thrives in fast-moving cold water. Comes in 3 colours, but red being the most common. All my aviaries have got outriggers like this. That's where the water is, and I feed the soft food on it. Any rubbish then falls through to the ground, not in the aviary, and the chooks, guinea fowls, whatever else get to clean that up. This is the front of the aviaries, but you'll see I've got all these little 4-inch pipes sticking out the front. They're actually a PVC elbow that go up into the aviary, and the aviaries are cemented, and on the inside there's a brick sitting over the brick sitting over the other end of the elbow to stop the mice coming in. But when I want to clean the aviaries out, slide a hose up in, I can wash them out, just easy to clean. And being rural, the rubbish can just sit out there. I don't have to worry about the mess too much on the outside. So just standard parrot aviaries, 2 nest boxes, 2 perches, feeder at the back, and a standard mouse catch box down there. That's a big issue being rural this time of the year. They move out of the paddocks and they're hunting for somewhere to camp that's warm for the winter. So there's a few of the birds that are in there. Blue wings up the top, pied khakis, which I've now actually just got rid of, and some straight Turks. I keep generally straight birds, a handful of mutations, but not really what I do. So we'll move away from the parrots. So what do you do when you've got a gap between a set of aviaries and the garage? You fill it in with an aviary, don't you? So this is all 1/4-inch mesh. I hate double doors, so I've got the cafe blinds there. I've never had birds escape when I go through there. Mouse wall and planted. So we'll step in. It's planted there. You'll see there's a nest box up here, and you'll see a golden shoulder there. We went somewhere and saw golden shoulders in a free flight aviary, and sort of took me a bit. And I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. Had no intentions of breeding them in that big aviary. I just thought we'll just have them there, but they had other ideas, and no heat, no nothing, but they breed successfully there every year except last year. There's 3 young ones there. So we'll go up to the walkway behind those aviaries. You can see it's a little bit nice and wide. If anyone can guess what that bird is, you're doing very, very well. It was flying when I took it. So we've got, these are drawers and the feeders, catches underneath. I hate going into aviaries. So I service all mine from the front or the back. There's little boards up here. That's melamine boards that when you get older, I forget stuff. So everything's written up there, whether something breeds, something dies, where their parents are from, just bits and pieces of information. And, freaking big fingers. Yeah, you want me on that, don't you? So this is just stuff that's hung up in here. And because you couldn't guess what that parrot was, it's actually rock, hey? It's a rock parrot. And I've actually had them just breed here in these boxes, just sitting there. These bags are full of coconut fibre and stuff that I store. Yeah, white-browed scrub wrens, 5 inches. They come into there, no nest in there now because I've had to open it up. And the reason I had to open it up, before I had the feeders like that, I had these sort of feeders. I used to just open the door to allow silver eyes in to collect the cobwebs for their nest. And I used to leave it open for, a week or 10 days. And it only takes that long for a green-winged pigeon to build a nest on top of one of those. That nest wasn't successful, obviously. She just fell on the floor, but I put a bowl there and they've bred, well, not there until I changed it over, and now I've put a nest up on the wall. They breed in there every year. Yeah, that wasn't on a flat surface. Good on them. So, yeah, so I've changed them over to the wire backs. So we'll step outside and you can now see the door's actually shut, but I've had to build a access. I leave it open all the time. And the birds, you'd be surprised how many birds actually go in and out of there into that walkway just to gain access. So that's actually quite large. That fills in between this row on the right-hand side and the left, goes above it. None of these sheds aviaries are square to one another. So it's a real odd shape. You can see I've had to bow the roof down to come under the gable eaves here. I've had to put struts here, but not back there because she was narrowing off. But I just like big aviaries, big planted aviaries. You probably don't get the results as you would single aviaries, but geez, it's nice to be able to walk in amongst them. Some of the critters that I keep in there, obviously the green wing, the rocks, Napoleons, straight fires and straight diamond doves, among others. And I also keep a couple of soft bills in there. Silver eyes, I've done very well with silver eyes in there. Great learner, starter, soft bill. Very forgiving with their diet and management. Only downfall is you've got a DNA section to know what you've got. Other than that, absolutely terrific. And of course, white brow scrub wrens. There's a juvenile here on the right-hand side with a pupae that it's eating. And I found them not very difficult at all. But you don't see them much in the aviary except fleeing from one bush to the other. But just another little interesting fella. So down the end, I've got a pond. I was going to have mandarin ducks in there, but I didn't. But I just like a pond. Very divisive. I've picked up one dead bird out of that, and that was a young diamond dove that got into trouble. So, you know, it's a bit of a trade-off. You're going to probably get a few losses, but gee, they look good. That's looking back the other way now. The couch grass, buffalo grass has taken off there. That's actually where the Napoleons nest in that. They nest down in that there regularly, although this year they didn't. You can see a pair of stilts that are also in there going down the side. So there's the pond before ducks went in. I let the duckweed get cracking, tried to get the plants quite established. I'd love to have got them established a bit quicker, but they didn't. And the reason the pond was there was these jokers. Anyone know? I see a couple of people will because I've heard it twice and 3 times before. But the next picture will give it away. Bluebill ducks. When I was telling a mate of mine that I was putting a pond in, he said, make sure it's deep. So that's 3 foot deep. And they told me about mandarin ducks being a bit grumpy, so it put me off. And he gave me 2 bluebills, and it turned out to be 2 hens, which was the 2 birds before. And one of them actually laid in the first year. I said to him, you've given me a breeding hen. And he said, just hang on to it. And he turned up with a cockbird the following year. Last year, both pairs laid, but the cockbird was only 12 months old, didn't leave fertile eggs. So I'm not sure whether they're mine or I'm looking after them for him, but at that stage when he took them on, there was none in private aviculture. There was only those in parks. He was managed to get some eggs from where he works, hatched them, and he sort of farmed them out a bit just to try and get them more available. But they got very quiet very quick. When the hen was sitting, the nest was right on the edge of the pond where my path is, under cover, of course. She'd come out and she'd just attack your feet. And I couldn't believe bluebills would do that. We get them wild on our swamp some years, very secretive. You barely know that they're there. If you go down there, disappear out in the reeds really quick. But these have got quite confiding. There's the stilts when they were young, before they coloured up. Always loved stilts, very clean, like the noise they make. So that's probably the reason why I've got those. I thought they'd have bred last year, but they never actually got excited about that as a prospect. So just around the corner, that's sort of the area they can retire to when it's rainy or wet, get a bit of protection. I have now got more nesting material boxes and brush baskets and that in there, but just a space for them to get their feed and so forth and forth. And once again, we've got a mouse trap on the floor. You've just got to keep on top of them. So we'll look back along the front on the other side there now. There's a row of Finch aviaries. They're all about 6 metres deep, about 2.4, 2.5, something like that at the front, sloping back high. What is there, 4 or 5 of them that are, say, 2.4 wide, a couple a bit narrower down the other end, and planted and quite open, with the exception of these couple here. I've got a bit of clear stuff over the front. The rest have only got probably a third of the, big third, I suppose, of the aviary protected from above. So my birds have to do it a little bit tough. So we step out, and this is the end of it. This end also takes the prevailing weather, but it also opens up onto our lawn area. So I've left it as open as I sort of can, so that you can look in there without just blocking it up. Now, I use all second-hand iron. As you can see, I match the colours nicely. Once again, we've got the cafe blinds. I have to take the ride-on mower in through there to cut the grass. So it's a lot easier than to have double doors. We'll go into the walkway there now. So that's the walkway behind this set of aviaries. Make your walkways wide. You want to turn that wheelbarrow around without barking your knuckles. Absolutely hopeless otherwise. You want to walk down there carrying 2 buckets. And when you've got a visiting group, bus, whatever, if you've got them little narrow ones, everybody shuffles down, but it's only the fella at the front that sees everything because they've all got to turn around and shuffle out. Make a bit of room, make it easy for yourself. And once again, you'll see the next one. Oh, geez, press there. There's the board again. And I just record everything that happens. So the date they fledged, in the brackets is the number of fledged, and as I take them out, I tick it off. Now, because I've got an emphasis on pure normals, you'll see here this pair of fires give me 5 for the clutch. Beautiful. You love them. But 2 of them were pied. They only got the opportunity once more. They were gone. And you also see there's a pair of tries here. She brought out 2. Had no hope of looking up. Hadn't have a clue. You don't see them there again either. So that was, well, at the time, what birds were in there. But I jot down little things that need doing. It may not have been in that aviary. My memory's not brilliant. So you write down, you get a spare 10, 15 minutes sometime. You can walk, oh, shivers, I can do 2 brush baskets somewhere or bring in a spare double bar hen for wherever I need it. At the end of each season, you can take a photo if you want to record it all to keep track of how good or not pairs are. Wipe it off and start again because they don't look like that this year. It's probably one of my worst years we've had. So that's inside one of those aviaries. So it's just planted aviary. Nothing flash or fancy, I suppose. I like the planted aviaries. I don't keep more than probably 5, 6 pairs of birds in any of those aviaries. I don't like to overstock them. And once the young get 3, 4 weeks, as per the board at the back, get them out. There's another one looking the other direction. I got hold of this expanding lattice with fake leaves on it. And I thought, geez, this is the go. Just to break up that where the wind or drafts may get in while the plants were getting established. Finches just flicked through that like there's no tomorrow. And it worked a treat. I have now removing them as the plants are getting more established, but it was just something we picked up at Aldi for bugger all at some stage or other when they had it on special. So there's a few of the critters that are sitting in some of those aviaries. There's stars there. I don't actually keep painteds anymore, but I keep that photo there because both the hen and cockbird are there. A lot of people take their hen birds out and shift them along because, oh no, they'll kill this, they'll kill that. But that photo shows actually both of them are holding a mealworm to feed their young ones. And over here, this is a brag photo. So there's some diggles there. She brought out 6 young ones. I was absolutely ripped. So you can take a photo of that, quick smart to put up there. She went back to nest again, and oh, here we go. Yeah, comes back to bite you. Yeah, 1 next time. So the average wasn't all that brilliant. I think there's some tries up there. I haven't bred another single bird from that actual pair. Last time when I was over in Sydney was back in January. We went to this place. It was someone's bird palace. And I thought, here we go. So we went for a visit. And I was absolutely disappointed. Not a chandelier, not a curved staircase in sight. Nothing. I thought it was inappropriately named. It was shocking. It was not palatial at all. But anyhow, I went in there and had a look, and the fella got chatting to him, and he worked out, I think he sort of half worked out who I might have been. And once he worked out I was after normal stuff, I did buy a few birds that were pure normals. And he said, oh, you might be interested in these, he says. Leans over the counter and there's some little button quail. And I thought, shivers, they're like bloody rocking horse manure over our way. And then the big question was, well, yeah, am I going to get some or not? Am I going to get some? So I ended up buying a trio, took them home. I went into quarantine for their 3.5 weeks. I thought, oh, well, we'll just chuck them out one of the aviaries. I chucked them out in there. They were like they do, disappear into the undergrowth. One day I was in there and I was doing something. I had to get into the aviary. Next minute, one shot out of some grass. What's going on here? Here was one of the cockbirds sitting on 3 eggs, I believe. I thought, Jiminy crickets will blow me down. So I went and caught the other 2 out, the hen and the other cockbird, shifted them out. And that hen actually raised 1, and then the others went down and brought out 2. So I've actually doubled my numbers and halved my price. So yeah, so no, I went back there again this trip, and he's not only had some birds there, he's actually ran around and picked up some other stuff for me. So I can't sort of thank him enough, really. But I'm still having trouble. I'm still having trouble with the palace bit though. So I've got to thank my cousin for actually driving me in there. I don't like being in that bit. Anyhow, right. So in each of those aviaries, they've got a drawer system. Once again, I don't like going in there. So what's in there? So this is a red block made for the equine industry, a bentonite block, actually not for the bird industry, but it's a lot cheaper than the one for the bird industry. So I just break them up. You've got shell grit, charcoal, cuttlefish, and it's yellow panicum. I wouldn't have done it that way had I known I could get hold of yellow panicum. I'd have had it in the other. So up here would be mealworms, maggots, or live food. Up here would be soft food. This joker down the corner here, that's once a week job, will be oiled red and yellow panicum with the good oil. And here's a tonic mix that I give weekly to the birds, which is a mixture of, which I'll show you later, of all different seeds that basically don't come in the single seeds I give. And had there been siskins in there, there'd have been another one of Hunnell sunflower. And this is obviously not sort of when they're breeding going on. There'd be a spike in there that'll have cucumber or corn or whatever I've got at the time. But it just makes it easy. You can slide it out, work from the outside to top up those things. So, yep, tight ass Charlie here. I don't like spending money when I don't have to. So I made up all these feeders. And like I said, I'd have made them 4s had I known I'd get the yellow panicum. That I made myself out of PVC. And I got that at the right price too. And that's just the 3 main seeds. You've got the white French, red panicum, and the plain canary on the end. And the rubbish obviously goes to the bottom. Clean that. Use it either for sprouted seed or back through the parrots or somewhere else that can clean up all the rubbish. But I, once again, fill them from the outside. So a few birds that I keep there, obviously cordons, they're great sellers at any sales, or tend to be, especially if you're going to Victoria, where they seem to kill them with the cold. And a few of the other critters, birds that are along that road, we've got the saints, the diggles, Cuban up the top here, orange breast in the centre, and then yellow siskin, the singers, and tricolour here on the end. So we'll walk back to the last, well, not the last, but the bird room aviaries, I suppose. This is what I modelled that row on. Those aviaries are a similar size, 6 metres by 2.4 by about 3 wide. You look there, so there's the aviaries. They stop about here. Then there's holding aviaries in there, and then the bird room at the back. And that must have been a stinking hot day when I took that photo, because you can see the mini sprinklers go on the roof. And I can drop the temperature in that bird room by over 10 degrees with those sprinklers on. So a 40-degree day, the thermometer will come back to 30 degrees. And the birds actually go from sort of sitting on the floor to moving around pretty normally. I don't start the sprinklers till probably lunch or after. I like the birds to experience a bit of the heat, because if we get a power outage, they're going to have to suck it up in there. You don't want them to be sort of super reliable on that, which is a bit of a, we haven't had it happen yet, but one day it'll happen. So that's just there. Same with the outriggers planted. I don't actually have the wormwood in there anymore. Nothing ever nested in it. It was good, grows fast, looks good in there, but yeah, we ditched that as a bad idea. So this goes back a few years. That aviary was deliberately left really grassy. That was because what I kept in there, that was those your strawberries. Now that was back before we got the strawberries that we got now, that we're getting clutches of 5s and 6s and 7s. This was when, if you got 3, you didn't just tell your mates, you told everybody. So I left it that. They bred down in that grass, and I did pretty well with them. But when the price rocketed, I sold every last one. I thought, I'm going to have a part of that. I now only got one cockbird there, and I think he's about 8 or 9 years old. He's still plugging along. But I'll get back into strawberries again. The price is coming back, and yeah, they're a good little bird, but I couldn't resist the big dollars they were offering for something that at the time was probably at $100 a pair bird. So a few of the birds that I've got in there. I've got the red siskins, got the blue wrens, melbas, and of course the masks. Haven't done too badly with the masks. Bred in a big colony there, bred quite a few this year. Lost a few, but bred a few as well. So that's generally what the aviaries look like now. Planted. This is prairie grass here, so you can cut that right back. That'll grow up to something about 3 foot high. Everybody says nothing eats prairie grass, but they never let it seed no matter what's in the aviaries. And I also got, you can see these little clumps here, that's common reed or Phragmites. I went to the bother of driving all the way to Adelaide to hear a chap speak on weavers, because I had a few at the time and I thought it was getting quite interesting. He said, "But you need this stuff, they build their nests out of it." Right, into it. I've never had a weaver peel a leaf off that stuff, and it's invasive brute and stuff. So I'm in the act of taking that out. I find they use umbrella grass and a few others home. It might have been his birds. It worked for him. It just didn't work for me. So I also breed these. I didn't usually put these in the talk, but I got told I had to. And I've talked to a couple of chaps here that's got them. The red-crested, cracking little bird. So there's a young cockbird just starting to colour up that I'd bred, and just for interest, there's the hen. That's not a bad coloured hen. She's a bit redder than some others I've got. They also have a crest, but there's a little brown one when they bother to raise it. That's an aged breeding hen. They didn't even try this year. I'm sort of a bit scared to look to see how old she is, but I know she's on the wrong side of old enough. So here's a nest of theirs, which is pretty typical. They don't line it with feathers or anything. There's only a single hatched in there. That's the same bird, well, maybe nearly a week out of the nest. When they hatch them, totally insectivorous. Keep it up to them, keep it up to them. They fledge at about 11, 12 days. Very similar to the Jacquerini, onto the floor. And you think they can't fly, they flutter around. And if we get bad weather, I lose them. But the parents, they secret them away. And you won't even know you've still got young ones there. You won't find them. Only the fact that they're keeping on taking the soft food, live food. You know they're still there. And about a week later, one of these will turn up on the perch, hopefully, or two. And you've pretty much, if I can get them to this stage, you've pretty much got them. But I have a lot of trouble, but probably where I live mostly, or my aviaries are fairly open at that fledging stage. So there's a guess for you. I'll click the next one. That's a dotterel. I keep those as well. She lays and sits. She lays and sits. And she lays and sits. Haven't been able to get fertile eggs out of it, but one keeps them with the hope that they will one day. But just a nice, just a little different soft bill. Not real hard to keep at all. Quite abundant. They are around. I think in New South you can keep a lot of soft bills as well. We're sort of, you and South Australia are probably the two places that get them the easiest with the soft bills. So this is my nesting arrangements now. I used to have great big brush baskets. Oh, aren't they great? As soon as you had to place the brush, you'd take it down and there'd either be eggs or young ones. Just painful. So now I've gone down to lots of actually small individual baskets. All those baskets are about 300 mils square by 150 deep. And I find if they've used them, had a couple of nests in them, you can pretty much monitor it, work with it. Take one down, put a fresh one up, and you don't have to replace it all at once. You can patchwork it. And it just seems to me, it's working a lot better. I think the finches actually do like the bigger baskets because they can probably feel safer going further in, but that just helps with the way I work it. So there's a couple of singers that have bred there in one of those aviaries, just as a bit of, so you've got a few birds to look at as well. So that's a Himalayan greenfinch. Can't get them to breed. That bird now is on loan, permanent loan to a chap to try and get it. It's no good hanging on to a single bird if you can help someone out. I don't know whether there's any pure Himalayans left. A lot of them have got Oriental in them, but we've got to try and keep them as straight as we can. So we've got to work together. So that bird's gone to Geelong. He's given me some other birds and we'll see what we can do. So there's a few other little bits there. There's a wren, I like that because she was carting a bit of stuff. And a couple of other little pet projects of mine. Madagascar weaver. Once again, I don't think there's any pure Maddies left or pure Comoros. I think we're just working with something that's a bit like a Comoro and a bit like a Maddie. But I've been working with the Maddies and they've got to be red from the top of their bill, right, tip of their tail, from their chin, right to their vent, right through when they're in breeding plumage, the cockbirds, and oh damn that thing. And the red shoulders, I'd have liked to have seen it just a little bit further through. But it's getting out there. You see a lot for sale. I've trying to get new bloods hard. Oh yeah, I've got one. Send me a photo of the cockbird. They never send you the photo because they'll have patchy brown through here or the shoulders will be unred. So I've been working with them for a while to try and get what I can. I've got some coming up to, some get sent back to Sydney for a fella or somewhere else. I'm getting a few out and about. We're trying slowly to get there. The other pet project I got are these, red brow. You get so many people are keeping them, and especially on social media, whenever they breed something, they'll post it. Next minute, but you never see them post pictures of young red brows, yet everybody's got them. Whenever I breed my red brows, anyone that's on social media will have seen me put it up. I've bred another lot. Now, they only stay in their juvenile plumage for, I'll say, 8 to 12 weeks. They colour up very quickly. They are one of the hardest Australian finches to breed consistently or generationally. It's taking me a long time. That's last year's photo. That was a nest of 5. That's the first nest of 5 I've had. Those young birds are 5th generation aviary bred in 5 years. It's taken me probably 15 or more years to get there. And they're not worth anything. Why aren't they worth anything when they're so hard to breed? You can work that one out for yourself. But if you're looking for a cheap challenge, red brows. I spoke to people that were keeping birds back when trapping was legal. And what they used to do, especially with Gouldians, was the big one at the time. As the fresh birds came in, they'd go to the dealers and buy them, take them home and breed them that first year. Australian finches pretty much react to diet or the quality of their food to breed. So you've brought these birds in from the wild, put them in an aviary, and look at them. You've got a diet cracking here. You've got a buffet here. The seed's just over there. Look at these nesting opportunities. So they breed like hell. In the following year, hang on, nothing's changed. No, this isn't a breeding opportunity. This is a cruise. Feet go up, buffet, drinks over here, somewhere to sleep, and they don't breed on. You only get that sort of breeding the first year. So the breeders they work that out. They'd breed them the first year, sell them all off, and get another lot of wild birds in to breed again. And that's sort of what happens with these. When I got red brows the first time, put them in the big aviary, bang, I bred them. How easy is this? Sold the young off, then watched the parent birds die slowly over the next 5 years doing nothing. I did that twice before some clown woke up. He wasn't too bright, was he? So the next time that I managed to pick some up, and I'll guarantee that they were wild caught, I worked with what young I got, and I slugged it out for a lot of years to get where I am now. I'm never going to get rewarded for aviary bred birds, though I have no trouble people know they're aviary bred. I have no trouble selling them, but they're never going to make the value. You know, they're up there with the red-eared and the beautiful and the white-bellied crimson. It's difficulty of breeding these darn things consistently. You know, you hear a lot of people, you'll breed them now and then, but the consistency's been a really, real big challenge for me. So you'll see another lot of young ones in a minute. This is the walkway behind those aviaries. And once again, we've got the board, we've got the drawers, feeders here. These are my boxes that I sell with. They live up there. And along here, they're just holding aviaries for young stuff I've bought, bits and pieces. I don't breed in any of those aviaries, though there's brush in there. That's just so that things like my red cresters and things got somewhere to feel a bit safe when you go down there and retire to. So that's sort of the same system there, but the waters, of course, they're fed up from above. They come on once a day in the wintertime, twice in the summer. The water's just transported outside to escape, so I haven't got water all over the floor. So we'll go around the other side once again, holding aviaries down here, just a little bit bigger this time, a few more around the corner. Not ideal, but they're my quarantine cages. And like I said, birds will spend a minimum of 3 weeks in there. They get treated and all those sorts of things while they're there. Up here is a heap of saints. Every last one of them was a hen, excess to needs. When I had so many hens, it wasn't funny. But I have to have the saints, of course, for my pintails. So we spin around. Yep, got the sink, power and water. You can't be without it. And all the bits and pieces that you accrue for doing your stuff. I don't know if anyone can see here, but there's a bird there suspended by a very fine bit of stuff. That was a grenadier hen, and I didn't find her until I was in pruning the aviary. And the poor thing, I'd hate to think what, her head had gone through a strand of grass they were using for the nest, and she'd twisted it and choked herself. Not a nice way to die, but just an accidents do happen. So I got my sprouted seed going here, and yeah, all the just the bits and pieces. Food processor, kettle, that's my closest I get to hot water in there. So we swing around a bit. Yep, freezer and the fridge and freezer. I store a lot of hard-boiled eggs because when the chooks are laying in the spring, I boil them and freeze them. I feed them out that way from the freezer in the low times. I only just got back from a sale, so we've got the boxes here getting ready to be cleaned. There's the end of the quarantine cages. And if you take note here, there's a padlock on that and a pin. And just in this room, I just store all my bits and pieces. And sadly, up here is the certificates, so you got to put them up, tell other people that you do stuff and let it out. But sadly, I never used to have that. I used to have, when we had bus trips, just let them have open range, you know. One club came through, and I don't blame the club. I know which club it was. But when I come to use my crop needles, someone thought they needed it greater than I, and some rings as well. Now, it's not good. I don't blame the club. It was just one person. And what do? Do you shut down, stop people coming in? You know, I like to encourage people, so I still let them in. So now I just shut the door and put a padlock on it. They can look through that mesh, but they just can't put it in their pocket. You know, a $20 item, but apparently his need was greater. You know, if I'd have needed that crop needle in a hurry, I'd have been beside myself. I was just lucky we noticed it was missing. So we'll go through there now, or look through rather. You'll see there's a cool room door. Actually, it's a freezer room, or what's what it was. As I live where I do, you saw that earlier, access to live food, purchasing it is impossible, you know. 50 grams of mealworms at the vet for $11.90 or something. It's not happening. Same with the crickets or whatever. So I had to do something about that. The first little bit, so this is all the bits and pieces for me flies. I breed my flies in here. I only get them to lay their eggs in there. Otherwise, it just gets too crowded. So that's just to lay their eggs. They need light to lay eggs, obviously, and warmth. It's on a thermostat, and away we go. But the freezer room, I've got shelves in it, and that's where I grow everything out. I do all my insect breeding. I picked up that little freezer room for $400 on buy, swap and sell. I'd have loved it being a little bit bigger. My wife is tickled pink that it's small because that limits the amount of soft bills I can keep. So I'm happy with it. Don't get me wrong. So I've got mealworm tubs here. I've got cricket tubs down here, and you can just see the corner of where I grow my maggots out and turn a lot into pupa. I feed a lot of pupa as well, I suppose, putting back in the fly tub. So I heat that with just an oil column heater on a thermostat. It comes on in the wintertime. In the summertime, there's enough heat generated by those maggots growing to keep it warm. In fact, too hot, and I'll often have the door open. So what you get a problem here, if this is heating, heat rises. This thermostat's on for 27 degrees, so it'll be 27 degrees at this level. Top could be 57. So up in the roof, I've got a little exhaust fan, but there is no hole, and it just circulates the air through the whole cool room to keep it pretty even. And this is the cricket breeding boxes down the bottom. Having issues with me crickets, I changed from a chest freezer, which I was doing in, put it here into smaller tubs, and I'm getting a wow effect. I'm not getting consistency. I'm getting crickets, and get a great hatch one lot, not so good the other. I save my crickets for things like the red cresteds, the maddies, a few of those things when they're breeding. I sort of spread them out to a few of those to do. So there it is. That's telling you that it's 27 degrees and 32% humidity, and that could be down a bit because the door would have been open, so that would be a receding number. We'll move away from that. We'll go onto the back lawn. My wife said she liked the look of Gouldians, so there's an opportunity. You build straight away. Dead straight Gouldians. No mutations in these. We'll go back one. Big thumbs. 2 colonies of reds, yellows and blacks. those reds have had no new blood for 15, 16 years. Blacks and yellows, 4 years ago, whatever it was, big problems. Yep, I've got straight blacks, he says. We test mated them, no dramas. So into the colony they went. Ran out of, we needed some yellows, so a few with black with yellow tip beaks were flicked across in order to build my yellow numbers up again. Yeah, got a blue one down here, didn't we? So thankfully my wife keeps pretty good records of what's going on there and the older birds that she knew was straight. So we culled these birds right down. Oh God, this is going to take forever to breed back. But we'd given our old birds many years ago to a woman in town, and she'd just kept them mixed colours in an aviary. She wanted to go travelling, contacted my wife, said, look, do you want your Gouldians back? She hadn't bought any other birds to put in, and she'd bred some, so we were able to get those birds back, split them up, and we're back on track again. So purchasing birds when you've got straight stuff is full of risk. You try and mitigate it, but it's a hard one. So we're back on track with our yellows and our blacks again, hopefully. We haven't had any colour for the last couple of years, so we can only hope. Once again, you've got that outrigger and timer and everything for your water. So each aviary, basic as, absolutely basic. Just little 6-inch or 5-inch cube nest boxes, a few perches. Obviously there's seed and their goodies down here. Breed like flies. And I only keep, I think there was 4 pair when that photo was taken, would have been in that aviary. There's only 3 pair now, trying to reduce the number of young ones, because although we don't have a lot of trouble selling straight stuff, especially if people are chasing that, you'll have no dramas. But if I turn up at a sale asking, and I don't know what your prices are here, but down our way, asking $50 a pair for a pair of pure Gouldians, it's hard to compete when someone down there's got normal looking ones for $35 a pair in Murray Bridge sale. You know, but if someone wants straight, they know they'll actually come and purchase them. Another little holding aviary we've got. I hold my young neophemas in there. Same old deal, just holding aviaries. Nothing fancy. 7 foot deep, 2.1, 2.1 deep, and 1.4 wide. We've made them a little bit bigger. Just to got to have somewhere to hold birds. You never have enough space, especially. Like I've come over here and I've taken the opportunity to get birds to take back, not because I haven't got them, but for new genetics. And same when you go to a sale. You go to a sale a long way off, I might buy a bird, don't really need it. It'll just sit up there and it's just there as for down the track. We'll get on to the last big aviary, which actually was the first big Finch aviary I built. That's was built over an existing tree. It's 12, 15, 16 metres. 6, 14. This is about 3 metres here, about 4 metres at the top there to breed finches. Boy, just about everything we put in there absolutely goes gangbusters. Especially when we first started. Not quite so much now. We've had this year has been very ordinary, and not just myself. Quite a few people around have noticed that with their finches, although they're starting to kick on late now. So we'll step in. So we've got Ivor geranium there, just heavily planted. Aviary, nothing much more than there's a nest basket up the top there that desperately needs changing. So there's blue face in there. I just didn't mind that photo. And the next photo, that was a really hot day. This little fella decided he was going to sit out there for the day, and as evening came, he dropped back in. I just like that photo. So there it is at the other end. Once again, I've got a small pond. What have I picked up out of there? 1 aged silverbill. And all the time that pond's been there. There's that umbrella grass that I've found the weavers like a lot better than this Phragmites that's here, but they're gone now. More of those baskets floating around. Pair of plumheads sitting on the edge of the pond there, young fellas, just sitting there. Once again, I'm going to flog that red brow again. So there's red brows out there, nice little cockbird. There's a young bird that was bred out there. You know, if you're going to catch them, it's just cheating as far as I'm concerned. So we've got, just looking down the side, got nest baskets all along this side and that side as well, plus these hanging out here. They don't actually nest much in this. Sometimes down the base they will, but they're more likely to nest in here, especially things like St. Helena's. They sort of hammer that grass there. So there's an interesting photo. Don't put cutthroats in with everything because they're noisy and obnoxious and annoy things. Nah. They probably will in a 6-foot cube aviary where you've got 15 pairs of something and it's dry and they've got nothing better to do. I think there's 19 cutthroats there, quite a few of them are young ones, obviously. I don't have any dramas with them. Of course, a lot of those young ones will come out in those aviaries. But yeah, you don't often see a nice group like that sitting together. There would have been more in the aviary. That's just happened to be what was there. So there's some of the critters that are kept in there. We've got the grenadier, the double bar, long tail down here, and of course the pintail and one of the youngsters. Not that difficult to breed if you listen to someone that knows what they're doing and follow what they are. I discovered that very, very quickly. I have a mate, he was breeding them. I was actually breeding the Saints for him, for his pintails, and one year he bred quite a few cockbirds, and I said to him, look, you've got a spare one, I'd like to stick it out in the aviary and stick it up some people that come for a visit. So he sent me back one, and it was in the aviary for 2-3 odd years. And a couple of years ago at a sale, he came back carrying a box with a grin on his face. He said, look what I got. He picked up 2 hen pintails, $300 each. I thought, freaking hell, I hadn't seen them. But anyhow, that was all right. Next sale, he comes towards me with a box with a grin on his face. He gave me his old breeding hen, which was okay, but I never had any Saints much to put out. So I scrounged around. I put 7 pairs out last year. At the right time, like he said, because I've been breeding his Saints as he wanted. First nest of Saints come out. There's about 4 or 5. There wasn't a pintail there. One day I'm out in the aviary and I'm thinking, what the hell's this bird? There was a pintail in there. I ended up breeding 4 pintails that first year just by listening to him. So I stuck it, like you do, stick it up on social media and say, how easy is this? And boy, did I get people jump down my throat. What ass? You know, nah, you were just lucky it was a fluke. Oh, it could be too. This year, I actually had 10 pair to put in because I was a bit more organised. Yeah, I've got at least 6, possibly 7 young ones. It's not that difficult if you are planned and work for it. You've just got to have those Saints going when the pintails are ready to go. Don't get them in too early. You miss the opportunity. So we go to the back of it now, and you'll see there's a lovely string here. It strings across and down to here. And just hiding down here is a lovely bench. Now, my wife's not big into birds, but she does like reading books. So she'll put some seeding grass down there, sit here with a book and wait for someone to go in, and she'll trap out young ones for me. When not in use, this wire door is actually clipped open. You don't want that falling down. There's also another scape route out here that is actually clipped open at the moment. This is a little box on the side. Hard to catch them in here. Put your arm in there, out they gone. So I've got a rubber, and they just herd down in there, a little V. Of course, that's shut, and you can catch them out there. So she'll go out there and read a book, look up, read a book, and I'll go back later on. She'll have 20 or 30 young ones, hopefully in a box for me, and say, are any of these any good? And we'll get out 90% of the young ones that way. You always get some that are smarter than us. But at every 4 or 5 years, we trap that aviary completely out to try and even up the sexes. But in saying that, that aviary also holds a lot of my aged birds. I don't sell my aged birds. I don't take them to someone like Andrew to flog off. I'll give them to people. If someone's looking for something and I'll say, look, yeah, I might have an old cockpit, and I'll let them know, I'll give them to them. I only sell young birds. Very, very hard to get a good name. Very, very easy to get a bad one. I'll sell young stuff. I've always tried to do that. Unless it's lost a ring, in which case, I can't help that. So that's one of those brush baskets, and I took a photo of that because it's stuffed. So it needs replacing, but there's one nest here, one nest there, one nest there, one nest there, and there's actually another one around the corner. That's had 5 nests in it in whatever time, as long as it's taken for the leaves to fall off the brush and look really ratty. So it's actually been a nest in there too. But it's at that stage. I've got plenty of these spare baskets, whether it's with this, what is it, 3 by 1 inch mesh or 2 by 3 or whatever it is. I'll have others around. I'll have made them up and I'll walk in. Oh yeah, that one needs replacing. Just drop that on the floor, hang the next one up. I might only do 5 or 6 in there at any one time, but I just find it really easy to manage those baskets that way. Back behind, so here's that rope, here's the chair you can't see. Back behind, I've got a little room there, and I can trap birds through that. Don't often, because that's Yeah, dumb design. Looking in hindsight, I'd never done it that way in my door, because how you got to get in there to catch them? You open the door, out they come. But in there's another feeding station. So I've got 2 feed stations. There's just some little holding cages that sometimes you want to put something. If you want to introduce it and there's other of the same species, you wonder whether they're going to argue or not. Just give them a bit of time in there. But I've got some clear sheeting. There's here across the roof and this side. In the summertime, I put this blindy sort of stuff to break the heat down a bit. But in the wintertime, that's lovely and warm. And the finches will just go in there and chill out, keep warm in that room. You know, it might be a cold day, 10, 12 degrees, but in there could be 18, 20 degrees just with that warmth. There is actually power in this aviary, and I do run a light in there sometimes. When I first had it, I used to run the lights in the cold nights, and we'd come home from spotlighting at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. And if you happen to sneak down to the aviaries, which I often did, and look through a nail hole in the second-hand tin, there'd be birds feeding down on that feed because they could see at 2 o'clock in the morning. Absolutely staggered me. Not a lot, but they were there. So there's some normal emblemas, none of these big red-fronted things that seem to be, through selective breeding, have come out. I don't actually keep painteds. My aviaries are not super suitable to them. They're too open and not dry enough. But every now and then I jump in and buy them, breed a few, and just like having them around. I also keep a couple of spine bills. They're actually cockbirds. One of these, I've got a good mate. You're doing enough work for soft bills, have these. So I've had them. They're great birds to have in there. They're on speed. They're on the go all the time. Granddaughter, she could take a flower in there, hold it like this. As long as she was still, they'd land on her arm. Absolutely think it's fantastic. And there's another picture of one of the other jokers. I'm down to one now, but I won't bother probably to get any more. I've been there, done that, but they're not difficult. Nectar mix and a few insects, especially flies hatching from pupa, done. So that's just the outside at the other end. Before I've pruned the tree, you can see I've got to prune that every year to keep it back and trim. So this just gives you a little bit of perspective in the backyard. So this was the Gouldians, that was the other holding aviary. That's the big joker there. So how do I manage it? So I'll just go through each of those bits and pieces there that I've got up there, how I manage my collection. So diet, right, you saw my dryer seed. That's available all the time. I fill that up. Live food, maggots, mealworms, crickets. Look, wild caught insects, I do that as well with those traps and stuff. Have done termites, I freeze termites. It's a time thing. I know it's just down the road to get, it's just a time thing. Seeding grass, always, every opportunity to find seeding grass, that goes in. I do fruit for the silver eyes. They're probably the biggest fruit eater. I actually had to write up an article for the Queensland Finch Society in their foreign's book. So I actually had to do a little bit of research on the red-crested to get a bit of accurate information. And overseas, they feed them a lot of fruit. I thought, geez, I don't do that. So I thought, oh, we'll try that. Mine don't like it. But that's not to say someone else's don't. I could not get mine to eat it. Another chap that breeds them, they absolutely love corn on the cob. I can't get mine to take corn on the cob. Whether they're getting enough in there, I don't know. I make a nectar mix, once again, for the silver eyes and for the spine bills. And I make up a soft food mix. So that's it. That's it here. So what have I got? I've got sprouted seed over this side. Green seed or frozen green seed. I do my own frozen green seed because it's just impossible to get. So up here is hard-boiled egg. There could be every day, half a dozen hard-boiled eggs and a bit of chicken crumble, or actually game bird starter crumble I use, a bit higher protein, and I mix that up with it just to stop it going sluggy and juicy. So, and I do the same here. This is my veg mix. So there's always 3, carrots, peas and corn. They're the standards. They go in. And then what other veggies I've got floating about? Like at the moment we've got capsicums and we had zucchini, just whatever. Don't feed much fruit. And I don't know whether I use a food processor. Don't turn it into sludge. But if you do things like silver beet, especially the stems, there's a lot of moisture in there. So once again, in there goes those game bird crumbles. So the mix is a moist, crumbly mix, not a sludge or anything else. And once a week, I put this stuff in there. That's greens powder, spirulina and stevia, the 2 ingredients in it that I like. It keeps kelp the colour on your soft bills, especially people that keep robins and stuff. but it also enhances the colour of your finches as well. And if you're selling them, if they look a bit better than the fella next door, it's always handy. But they get that just once a week mixed into the thing. So the meat mix, so this is for the things like dotterels and stilts and wrens that I make, and I freeze that and just thaw bits as I need it. So it's lean mince, and actually I'm not as lean as I used to be. A fair bit of fat goes in. So at the moment they're eating venison. It could be mutton. It could be whatever I can get hold of. We've killed a cow for the dogs or something, whatever I can get. Boiled eggs, once again, with the shell on, obviously. A lot of big boiled egg content. Insectivore mix, so I use Wombaroo. And that, with the game bird crumbles, is actually to give it that friability and crumbly texture. And insects. When I say insects, when I use those wild traps our way, you get a good night, you get a heap. And often you can't feed them all out, so I freeze the spare ones. And they get munched up and go into that mix as well. Doesn't happen this year we've got bugger all in our wild traps, but other times that's what goes in there. Another chap that makes a mix very similar, he uses a fish meal as well, especially for things like dotterels and stilts that are actually water birds. I make, as I saw, that tonic mix. So they're the critter, well, that's what goes in mine, and it's definitely not limited to that or must include all what I got. So that's what it looks like when I mix it up. An aviary gets, of what, 6 pairs, gets probably a tablespoon a week. The bigger aviaries obviously get a bit more. So that's what I've got in mine. So we get the chia seed, black and white, sesame in both black and white, quinoa in black, white, tricolour, hemp seed, so that's whole hemp seed, linseed, poppy seed or more. Now, you can buy that, and that's generally radiated. So I grow my own poppies in the garden. They just come up. I harvest that myself. Really easy one to harvest and clean through a sieve. That's really easy. Niger. Now, I've had both the Australian and the imported stuff. The imported stuff's radiated. You put the two together, they'll eat one, they won't touch the other. So you get this Aussie if you can. It's much dearer. I get that, and especially this year, one of the growers did not get a crop, so someone's got a monopoly. So I don't know what the price has done to it. And Japanese millet, it's a lower yielding millet. It's not Jap millet. It's not Shiroe. Japanese millet. They seem to like that better than the others. Phalaris seed, we can get that home because we've got paddocks of the darn stuff, and you're doing work, you just put the bucket down in the front of your tractor and it collects it. And sunflower kernels, obviously you can get those. And it's definitely not limited to that. There's plenty of other things you could have, and you don't have to have it all either. But because I feed single seeds, it just gives those like oil seeds and a few other options to them. And yeah, some eat lots, some eat a bit. Just gives them that varied diet that they're not getting in their other. So supplements, I'm not big on supplements, as you can probably tell. So that's the greens powder that I use. Get it from Aldi, cheap as chips stuff. And that's just a once a week it goes in that mix. Multivite, I'm not big, definitely not big on vitamins. I think if you can give a good enough diet, you should be able to do it without it. I don't get any white feathers on things like orange breasts and that when they fledge. That's a dietary problem. But I have to give multivite because I've got holding aviaries in that bird room that do not get sunlight. So I've got to have vitamin D to keep them there. I don't like keeping birds in there longer than 3 or 4 months, but sometimes you just get that point where birds are just going to stay that longer. And that's the good oil that I mix with the red and yellow panicum. Do I notice any difference with it? I don't really know, but I can't say there is. But an old chap that I used to cart around to sales, he swore by the stuff. He said, you've got to use it. So just in his memory, I still use the stuff. Medications, I'm not big on that either. Apple cider vinegar in the water. Yeah, tried that. Don't do that. Couldn't see any difference. Avacycline or an antibiotic, that's one you can buy over the counter. Avacycline C. It's been around for donkey's years. It's only good for bacterial infections. And I reckon every bacterial infection that they can get is actually resistant to that. It's been around that long. And I pretty much think it's pointless giving it to it. If you've got a bacterial problem, you've got to know it's bacterial in the first place. Go to the vet and get the good stuff. That, yeah, It's just not worth mucking around with. And of course, worming stuff, which you had some over there. We just sort of buy it in bulk, coming off a farm, obviously. Sidectin plus tape. So that one's the all-round one that'll take out every worm and whatever. Do I worm regularly? Not anymore. We've got a sleeping giant coming up that we've already experienced in the livestock industry big time, and that's resistance to our drenches. With underdosing, repetitive dosing when they don't need it, and sticking to the one type of chemical to do everything for us. New Zealand are in a bigger problem because they are green all year round. They drench routinely every 6 weeks to try and keep worms under control. We're not quite that bad in Australia yet. I don't drench in water. You don't know how much they're drinking and how much is a dose for them. I'll crop needle them. Everything. If I drench, it's crop needled. So as birds come into quarantine, that's when I'll drench them. They'll all get it. If young birds are taken out to put somewhere, they're in the hand, I'll drench them. But other than that, I'm not going to drench until I've really got a problem. I'm wasting my time and creating an issue that could come down the track. If you put this stuff in water, the prosanquatil, which is a member of that bendazole group, for the tapeworm, actually doesn't stay in suspension, it sinks. You've got to go out there every freaking hour and stir it. So I drench them down the throat. I know I've had it. I don't drench my sheep by taking that container up to the windmill, pouring it in the tank and walking away. It just doesn't work. You've got to know they've had it. It's just my hobby horse. I'm not a vet, but I've just seen what happens in our livestock industry with resistance. You know, you hear people saying, oh, don't drench parrot finches with more than 5 to 10%, whatever it is, because they'll die. Actually, this Sidectin, the safety margin in that is really high, like actually very high. I haven't when I was doing it in the water, I left it in the water for a week. They were going to get a drink one way or another. You get a dewy day, they're not drinking out of the water. What happens when you've finished drenching them with the water? You tip that water out, put fresh stuff in. By the time you're out of the aviary, all your birds are down there having a drink in a bath because they know the water's clean and this stuff's out. They'll avoid it like the plague if they can. Just, yeah. Drench them. When I buy birds in, that's when they get drenched. Right, I bought some of Sam's birds. He said, oh, I drenched them and done everything last week. And he may well have. But if they come home, I'm giving them a drench too, because then I know. Nothing against what Sam's birds were like. I know they're done. That's the routine. If I can keep them clean coming in, try and keep it that way. So we're going to do the daily routine here now. Everybody says, how do you manage that? All that quickly. Takes about 20 minutes if I'm in a hurry and 30 minutes if I'm not, each morning and night. So I wash in the evenings. I wash and drain all my soaking seed, prep my soft food up. So that's chopping the veg and all that sort of thing. Thaw my meat mix out ready for the following day. Feed insects. Now that's not feeding insects to the birds. That's actually feeding the insects, you know, cutting up the carrots and doing all those sorts of things, or zucchini or whatever you're feeding them. So long as they got getting their moisture thing. And move the flies' eggs into new tubs back into the flies. So flies get that moved out every day. So then in the morning, I've only got to feed out, make these up, and off I head to the meat mix, nectar mix, take the insects out, soaked and soured spread, which is in the bottom here, to the parrots. So that's basically what I do at the breeding season of stuff, although it probably isn't because there's not enough veg in my mix there. And since then, I would have another dish because I've got a pair of curlews of just a meat mix that's rolled in Wambaroo. And my weekly routine, so this would be in the summertime on a Friday evening because we've got daylight slavings. Hopefully I've got time then, or perhaps a Saturday afternoon or something. So I fill my seed hoppers, the tonic and oil seed. This is the oiled seed here. Get done. Move my insects around. So all the tubs that had the mealworm beetles get done so that their eggs get moved on. The beetles get into a fresh one. Those that have got to the end of their cycle and big enough go into the feeding one. Same with the crickets. that all gets done as well. Clean water bowls. And when I say clean water bowls, no, I don't go out and scrub every darn one. Many years ago, a very experienced bird keeper said to me, he said, you don't need clean bowls, you need clean water. So a bit of green growing on the side, not a problem. Mine get filled regularly. It's more so parrots, but things like Alexandrines and kings, when they drop crap in the water and it goes, that's what, yeah, give it a scrub. But if the water's actually clean, I don't bother. Yep, if there's a bus group coming, yeah, I'll scrub them and clean them out pretty well so it doesn't look too bad. But so long as the water's clean, you see what they drink out in the wild. I might remove young and old enough. I don't keep young in those breeding aviaries any longer than probably 4 weeks if I can avoid it. Keep moving those youngsters out. Let those parent birds get access to all that goodness you've given to them. And then, of course, general maintenance. Have a look around. Oh, God, there's a bit of wire hanging there. Better fix it. There's a hole over here. Just general things that you notice and do as you move around. So this is where we'll go with a few little ideas and hints there. This is where I used to have, 20 rows of big parrots, cockies, all those sorts of things. And because I'm so far from sales, when I take a pair of birds to a sale, it represents 2 boxes. I don't want juice in that box when I get there. I've got to catch up the night before. Then I've got to head off for a 3-4 hour drive. And I got sick of buying a table like this for $30 and putting 5 pairs of birds on, maybe selling one, and have to take the others home. And the pair I sold was not much more than perhaps a pair of finches anyway. So we decided, nah, this is going to happen. So we decked them, pulled them all down, and then started the rebuild. That's all 1/4 inch mesh going on there. Mice is my biggest issue. And keeping them out's probably impossible, but trying as hard as you can to maintain or stop them getting in is the big thing with me. So that was the mesh going on. That's what it looked like when mesh was, and that ran out pretty straight. I was pretty happy with that, actually. I was a bit worried. They were all 4-foot widths. I had to pre-order those to get them in. Now, in order to keep costs down, because like I said, I'm a miserable miser, all the crosses on those frames are actually done with tie wire. So I just hook them around, twitch them in the middle, so that gives its tightness, and it rigids the whole thing up, but it also supports the mesh, stops it sagging. We've got guinea fowls home to keep the grasshoppers out in the paddock and not on our lawn. They walk around on the top of that. That hasn't sagged. Cheap as chips to get a bit of wire there rather than run extra blooming piping and figure around with more welding and stuff. So that's just was quite a simple way of doing it. So it all had to be tied together. So every, 10 centimetres, 4 inches, I overlapped by 3 squares to allow for any wobble, and then tied everyone every 4 inches. Wasn't something I'd plan on doing a lot. So every night you do 1 row. And eventually I got there. I'm not planning on doing that again. You're also left with these horrid little flute things, somewhere for a mouse to get in, or antechinus if you're unlucky enough to get them little hooers. And yep, being the tight ass, I'm not buying capping to put on there. So simple answer, slice down about 2.5 centimetres, give it a hit with a hammer, and tidies up those holes. And it doesn't look too, and you haven't got a snag. So back into the walkway, running around in those aviaries with a net, catching them young ones. Got sick of that idea too. So we've got a little door here that drops, actually goes up. I've got a hook that hooks there. I open the door and the flap, walk in there. Finches fly out into the walkway, shut the doors, catch those I want. And it only took 2 or 3 goes for the adult birds to work out. Once I opened this afterwards, most of them go back in. Yeah, I might catch a couple to put back in, but it made trapping out or catching out a hell of a lot easier. So similarly, we've got flutes up on the roof where the roof hits the tops. And what are we going to do there? So instead of cutting the mesh flush, I left it hanging over, 4 squares, so about 1 inch. Sliced in the bottom of each ridge and just pushed them back up into the flutes. No mouse is getting in there. Cheap as chips, I love that. So we had to build this pond, and I was only going to build a shallow pond, and like I said, my mate said, no, make it deep. So in with the bobcat, number 1 son, gets on it, and we dig a hole. Father was there helping as well. don't dig the pond right up to the wall, because if a finch, young one, fledges, hits that wall and drops down, you don't want it going straight into the sink, into the drink. So we dug the hole, and you know what happens when you dig a hole? Frickin' rains, doesn't it? So we had water sitting in there for a while. I wish that it was like that at the moment. Home, Jesus, dry ass. So then we got a beautiful rubber. It was quite expensive, but they guaranteed that for 25 or something, 30 odd years to line it. Lined her in. We filled her up. So it didn't look too bad when it was like that, but obviously I was aiming for a bit of growth. We carted the timber logs and bits and pieces in there. And then if we get round the other side, that's sort of what it looked like probably in 6 months. I planted a few rushes and reeds and that there. The kikuyu hadn't come down through there and formed a thicket. It actually has grown right out here into the water. And I haven't been cutting it back, but the ducks actually went into it and nested up in it last year. So I'm sort of tempted to keep it sort of partially in there again this year to give them a nesting site. But I reckon they'll come there. So and I'd just like to thank everybody, but I'd really like to thank Ben and James for carting me around to these last few places.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been really great to have you, Alan. Have we got any questions for Alan before we finish up his little chat? Hang on a sec while I pass the microphone over to you.
On your big aviary, you were saying about your mice. I've got the same problem out my way. Did you just dig the tin down?
Yep, my tin. Now, we live on a fairly heavy soil. We've got topsoil, and then it'll go down through, it'll either go into yellow clay or buckshot gravel. Now, even rabbits don't dig through yellow clay or buckshot gravel. So when I dig my trench, I take it down to that level. I might even crowbar a little track into it and push it down. Hence, well, I've also got that concrete apron just to help. Well, they like to go to a corner to dig. So that's, I've sort of, you've got to try everything to try and keep them out. I've got bait stations everywhere. This time of the year is our worst time, right? They're moving out of the paddocks and looking for somewhere better. So I've got bait stations. I don't usually bait a lot because I love to give my mice that I catch to the curlews. But I've got bait stations on the outside. I've also baited our sheds, all that around to try and minimise that. Still, look, we get incursions in there. It's just a matter of trying to keep on top of them. The big aviary with the tree growing in it, I've managed to keep that mouse free probably for about 4 or 5 years. This year, bugger me, there's a hole we've got. Well, I've caught a couple of mice in there. Touch wood, I haven't seen any more action, but I'm not going to say there's none in there. It's just a matter of just keeping at it and keeping at it and keeping at it. Yeah.
So your depth is more on
yeah. See, my father-in-law's aviaries, or either he hasn't got him, he lives on black soil on stone. So that's a really nasty one. We've got to put the tin on it, but you can't get tin level on stone. So you put the tin down, drop a bit of concrete along there to fill that gap.
Yep.
And mice aren't getting in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. No worries.
Any other questions, guys? Rightio. You want to say something?
There were a couple of questions from online, but I think actually you've answered them all. They were, asking about worming, but they're also saying to thank you very much for coming, as obviously everybody here is as well. Yeah, cheers, Al.
Not a problem.
Jackarinis. Oh, that's a bit better. Uh-huh. All right, yeah. So Brian's got Jackarinis, Scarlets, and scarlet-chested parrots. Yep. Wanted. Humphrey's looking for a male plumhead. Dennis is looking for 2 male yellowhead stars. And Josh Allen, 5 pair of blue-faced parrot finches. Okay, Joe, over to you for the raffle. Do you want the microphone? He's good with the microphone. Lovely.